This month's midterm election was a resounding victory for a young, telegenic governor from a state Donald Trump won in 2016. And hearing that, you probably think that I'm talking about Florida's Ron DeSantis, who has become the media's mean little darling. But nope, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who soundly defeated her Trump-backed challenger, election denier Tudor Dixon. Whitmer walloped Dixon by 11 points, a wider margin than in 2018 when she first became governor. A coalition of white and black women and independents joined together to boost this governor to her second term. And that's not all. Democratic candidates for the Michigan House and Senate won a majority of votes this year, putting their party in control of both legislative chambers, thanks in large part to a fair map drawn by a citizens commission instead of one crafted by Republicans. Gone is the decades-long advantage that Republicans had built up through gerrymandering. Governor Whitmer has already promised to work with the state's Democratic legislature to fully rescind a 1931 law that bans abortion, pass gun control legislation, and codifies same-sex marriage rights, issues that the Republican-led legislature refused to entertain. This comes after nearly 57% of Michigan voters backed a ballot measure seeking to enshrine abortion rights in the state constitution. And Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer joins me now. Thank you so much for being here. And I do have to ask you, how now that I think it's been 130 years since Democrats have had the so-called trifecta, having both the legislative houses and the governorship. I just listed a long laundry list of things you want to do. What's your first priority when the new session starts?
Well, I'm really excited, Joy. To be honest, in the midterm, I don't think anyone expected us to run the tables the way that we did. As you said, this has only happened 4 times in 130 years. So I'm excited about having a legislature that'll work with me as opposed to against me, one that will work on the agenda, making Michigan a place where every person has a path to prosperity, funding public education, making sure that we hit top 10 in terms of literacy in the country, and really building opportunity and paths to prosperity for every person, no matter who you are, what you look like, how you worship, or who you love, or how you identify. Michigan's a place for you, and we're going to make it so.
And, I compare it to Florida because people still sort of pine to think of Florida as a swing state. It's not. It's been trending red for a long time, and it is a red state now. And, for that governor to get reelected and to add seats, he illegally gerrymandered the state. Michigan is different. Michigan genuinely is a swing state. It swung back and forth between between President Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden. So it's a real swing state. Talk about how important it was for that gerrymandering to be dismantled to make the results reflect what Michiganders actually voted for.
Well, it was critical. For decades, Republicans have gerrymandered Michigan, and they have run, all of state government most of the time. It's been 40 years since Democrats were in control here. And so it's an exciting opportunity to give the power back to the people. The people should choose their leaders, not the other way around. And when you don't have gerrymandering and you've got fundamental rights on the ballot and a Democratic Party that is focused on solving problems and making people's lives better and growing an economy that creates real opportunity for all people, when the public has the opportunity to make their voice heard, boy, did they make it heard loud and clear here in Michigan. And I think if we had fairly drawn districts across the country, we would have a very different dynamic playing out across the U.S. right now.
And we know abortion was a very important issue. Republicans tried to keep that ballot measure off the state ballot because they knew what was coming, right? They could see that it was going to be bad for them. It obviously passed. But how important was this idea of democracy? I mean, unfortunately, you have had firsthand experience with what it looks like when people don't believe that elections should count and that they should have their way no matter what, including if they have to use violence. How important was the democracy message, in your view, to the results of the election for Democrats?
I think it was very important. My opponent was someone who was stoking political violence, making light of a plot to kidnap and kill a sitting governor, undermining confidence in our institutions, conspiracy theorist who was denying the outcome of elections. I was really grateful that she actually called and conceded the day after the election. I wasn't sure if that would happen. And I think it is so important that we understand, appreciate, and respect the will of the people. And I think that the core question around the health and welfare and safety of this democracy was front and center for a lot of voters, as were fundamental rights and, a party that is focused on the fundamentals as well. I think all of these things were played into what we saw happen here in Michigan when the voters choose their leaders. They choose leaders who are focused on solving problems and making their lives better, not those that are sowing conspiracy theories and trying to undermine our democracy.
And, I have a very good friend, one of my oldest friends from college, lives in Flint, is a Flint native. And so we know that for Black Michiganders, it's been a struggle under previous governors to get just basic fairness, environmental fairness. There's been a lot of environmental racism and pain delivered by your predecessor. For Black Michiganders, because this is a state with not a huge Black population, but really important cities, big cities that have real important needs, what would you say that they got out of this election?
Well, I think Black voters made their voices heard as well, right? I think it's crucial to stay focused on the things that will create paths to prosperity for every person. We closed the gap between how we funded our schools. For a long time in Michigan, wealthier areas got a lot more resources to educate their kids, and districts with fewer resources got less, and that flew in the face of all the science. We closed that gap and then built equity on top with putting more money into English language learners, at risk, kids with special needs. We have leveled the financial barrier to skills for 170,000 Michiganders. We're creating real opportunity with our racial disparities task force that started during COVID, but we've carried it forward, whether it is racial bias training or it is ensuring that our policies focus on things like sickle cell and issues that are uniquely and disproportionately felt by the Black community. So this is something that's really important. And today I announced the appointment of the first Black woman to the Michigan Supreme Court. Kyra Harris Bolden is going to be phenomenal justice here in Michigan. But this was, I think, a major step forward. And after 185 years for her to be the first, it's about damn time.
Yeah. And one last question. There is this new meme on the right that teachers, Mike Pompeo, who used to be the defense secretary, said the most dangerous person in the world is Randi Weingarten. As a woman who's faced targeting, what do you make of this idea that they are comparing the leader of the teachers union, a woman, and setting her up as a hate object, and teachers, who are mainly women, up as hate objects as well on the right?
It's disgusting, and there is no place for it. And anyone who holds a leadership position or wants to hold a leadership position, or any person of goodwill, needs to call this out. We have seen, whether it's anti-Semitism or homophobia, or it is almost anything, right? Anti-otherism. Has grown in this country, has created a very dangerous environment. For 3 years, I've been trying to get people to lower the temperature. It is this kind of rhetoric that endangers our fellow Americans, and that was roundly rejected in this last election.
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, are you aware of the nickname Big Gretch? And I don't know if you saw that rap video that was made for you at the end. Are you aware of that nickname? I have to pull an Ari Melba here and ask if you're aware of your hip hop nickname.
Oh, I'm very aware of it, and I love it.
Excellent. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, thank you very much.